What's up, guys? Let me know if you guys are in there. Just going live for a bit to answer some questions here for week 10. Just got a bit of time to kill, so figured I'd hop on here. So let me know when you guys are in the chat. Just type something in the chat and I'll see it, and make sure you guys can hear me. All right, cool. We got a couple people here. I'm just basically going to answer questions. If there's no questions rolling in, maybe I'll go through this Fantasy Labs wide receiver model. Can't show you guys all the player models, but I've got the wide receiver Sports Geek model pulled up here. So we got some questions rolling in. I'll try to get to as many as I can. Someone said, how do I feel about T.Y. Hilton? I don't love him this week against the Steelers. He is very cheap for how good he is. Just tough matchup, but he could go off in pretty much any game he plays. He's that good. So at that price, I don't mind him. I don't think might have him in one or two lineups in the Millie Maker, but other than that, don't really love him. But I am playing the Steelers defense. That's one of the reasons. Someone said Lamar Miller. I'm not playing anyone from the Texans. Someone said, is Duke Johnson a good play? Yeah, I like him quite a bit this week. I've got a lot of him in GPPs. McCowan to Curse. Could be a good one. I like McCowan as a contrarian GPP type play. Someone said Jets defense. Don't mind it. I think there's some better options, but for the cheaper price tag, I don't mind it at all. Someone said Powell. Yeah, that's a pretty obvious play this week. He's going to be very high owned. But I love Powell this week in cash and GPPs. 4,000 is just way too cheap for him. Even if he puts up maybe 15 DraftKings points, that would be a fine day at that price. But again, if you do fade him and he only puts up maybe 10 to 12 DraftKings points, then you're looking pretty good. Kelvin Benjamin, no, I won't be touching Benjamin. Darkwa or Powell. For me, it's Powell. I also like Darkwa. Thoughts on Jared Goff or Big Ben? Personally, I like Big Ben more. I might be biased. I'm a Steelers fan. I do think Goff is a pretty good play as well, but I'm going to be on Big Ben. I like Stafford, Ben, Breeze, and then I'm going with some lower-owned GPP type quarterbacks as well for the Millie Maker, just to try to get some guys at 1 or 2%. Anderson or Juju? That's a tough call. I'd probably lean Anderson, but I do like Juju Smith-Schuster as well. Deshaun Jackson, yeah, he was in my video. I like him quite a bit. I think a lot of people are going to be on Brait for a tight end. So I think a good pivot there is Deshaun Jackson, who's fairly cheap at $4,900 for the #1 wide receiver in Tampa Bay. Robbie Anderson versus Sanu. I like Anderson more than Sanu personally, but I've been playing Sanu as well the last couple weeks, and he's been doing pretty well. So I don't mind that. But if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably go Anderson. How do I feel about Tyrod Taylor? I like him. He's one of the lower-owned GPP type quarterbacks. Don't love him, but for the Millie Maker, I think it's worth a shot. How do I feel about Selleck? I've had Selleck in some lineups when I need to find someone really cheap at tight end to fit in some other good players. So I don't love Selleck, but if you're coming down to the end of your lineup and you need a really cheap player to fit in some of the elite players, then I wouldn't mind throwing Selleck in there. But yeah, it's tough. I think I have him in my cash lineup just because I wanted so many higher priced players, so I had to go down to Selleck at tight end. I don't love it, but tight end's usually the last position I'll fill in with DST. Mixon, I think Mixon would be a good GPP play this week. I'm not on him because I've got a couple Titans defense lineups, but for his price, I think he's $4,900. I think he could make for a good GPP play. Someone said, how do you feel about Titans defense? I like them at their price. I think it's $2,800. Don't mind it. There's not much under the 3,000 range that I like, so Titans was one of them. Hyde, Goodwin. I would kind of stay away from a 49er stack probably personally, but maybe in the Millie Makers or a big tournament like that, big contest like that, you could throw in a 49er stack, but that's very risky in my opinion. Stafford or Breeze today? I'm going more Breeze. I was going to throw him in my video, but I had Breeze last week, so I didn't want to throw the same QB in there twice in a row. Breeze is my top quarterback this week. Fournette or Shady. I'm not big on either of them just because of their high prices this week, and I think we've got some value at running back. But between the two, it's tough. I love them both as far as running backs and players. They're similar in price. I would probably go Fournette personally. But Shady can always have a big game too, so that's a really tough call. Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp. I like Woods. I think Cooper Kupp will be quite a bit lower owned. If you want to go with him for a GPP, it's maybe a good pivot. Calvin Benjamin. Not a good play in my opinion. I already talked about Selleck. You might have missed that. I do have him in my GPP lineup, my cash lineup, just because he was the only guy I could fit in there. But I don't feel too good about having Selleck in too many lineups this week. It's kind of risky, but at that price, if you need to go cheap, I don't mind it. Vikings D or Bears D. For me, it's Bears. Someone said Sammy Watkins. I'm not on him personally, but I think all of the Rams players are in play. They've got a very high implied team total. Ryan Fitzpatrick against the Jets. I've heard a lot of people talk about Fitzpatrick today. I don't mind it, I guess. I'm not going to personally be on him, but for the price, I think he kind of makes sense there. Bills D. Someone said Bills D is tough at home. I would stay away from Breeze. I just like Breeze, 6,900, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think the Bills D might be able to stop the run a little bit, and wouldn't be surprised if Breeze had to throw the ball a bit. And I like Breeze almost every week, especially if he's fairly cheap, which he is this week. But I hear your concern. Bills D can be really good. Lions or Bears D. So Lions defense is ranking good in a lot of the models I've been looking at. So I don't mind the Lions, but for the price, the Bears D, I like over the Lions at $800 cheaper on DraftKings. Jets defense is trending up. Extra days to prepare. Yeah, I don't mind the Jets defense. The only reason I'm not playing them as much as I thought I would be to start the week is because I kind of like Deshaun Jackson and Cameron Brate. Is McGuire a sneaky good play? He could be, but I'd rather go Powell. Juju or Bryant? I'd go Juju. I don't think Bryant's gonna have a big role in this offense right now. With what he's been saying and on social media and all that, I would kind of stay away from Martavis. Breeze with Ted Ginn Jr. Stack. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think I have a couple of those stacks in the Millie Maker. Ted Ginn Jr. is getting pretty expensive. I think he's up a little bit this week over what he was last week, but still capable of scoring some long touchdowns. So I don't mind that at all. Duke Johnson over Abdullah. Yeah, for me, Duke Johnson over Abdullah. Austin Hooper. Yeah, don't mind that play. I think I have him in a couple lineups. Don't really love it, but don't mind it. Darkwa over Abdullah. Yeah, Darkwa for me. Someone said go Steelers. That's right. Got them covering the 10-point spread today. Which QB do you believe will have a better game, Goff or Taylor? That's a tough call. I think Goff is projected to have a better game, and I think he might have a better game, but Tyrod Taylor for the ownership and the price might be a good pivot. Real quick, this is another question on Selleck. I've already answered it twice. I like him if you really need to fit in a $2,500 tight end. If you can afford to spend up and change your lineup around, then I would do it because I don't feel great about Selleck, but I do have Selleck in my cash lineup just because I wanted some other higher price players and I wanted to fit those guys in no matter what. So I went with Selleck at tight end, but don't love him too much. I don't think his upside is too high. Best stack with Breeze, I go Michael Thomas. That's my favorite one. Bortles or Mariota. For me, it would be Bortles, I guess. But Mariota at home at a low ownership is interesting. Tate or Jones? Tough call. I'd probably go Tate. Yeah, no problem, Dan. Brown or Bell? It's a tough call. I love them both. I've got a little more Antonio Brown this week just because there is a lot of running backs that are around the $6,000 range or even below that. We got Powell at $4,000. So there's a lot of value running backs that kind of took me off Bell a little bit and onto Brown more. So I have Bell or Brown in a ton of my lineups. I love them both, but I have a little more Brown. Gronk versus Denver. Yeah, if you're playing the Sunday night games, if it's FanDuel or on DraftKings, the prime time slates, do like Gronkowski. Favorite stack of the day for me, it's Breeze to Thomas. Hyde or Howard. For me, it's Howard. I've got a couple lineups with Hyde, but I've got quite a few more with Howard. All right, guys, going to be on here for a couple more minutes, probably 7 or 8 more minutes, and then I got to do some lineup tweaking myself. If I missed your question, just ask again. I don't want to scroll up and go through them again. Shepard, Ingram stack, or Richard Matthews and someone. I like Shepard and Ingram. I wouldn't mind a double stack with those two and Eli if you want a low ownership GPP type stack. Facing the 49ers, fairly bad defense. Morris, Smith, or McFadden. I wouldn't be touching. I don't think I'll be touching any of those guys. Maybe a GPP type play for the Millie Maker, but don't love any of those guys at all. What's below Powell's projected ownership? So on Fantasy Labs, I believe it was like 40 to 60 or something. I forget the exact range. So he's going to be high. Probably in the Millie Maker, he'll probably be at 35%, I would guess. So I think he's still worth playing in the Millie Maker if he's going to be about 35 to 40% owned. I wouldn't be, unless you're going to go all out and fade him almost completely, I wouldn't be too worried about it. 4,000 is pretty much pretty dirt cheap for a good running back who is basically the number one back in a pretty good situation against the Bucs. How much do I usually bet a week? It changes all the time. Yeah, I'm not going to answer that sell it question. I've already answered it. Darkwa, I've answered a couple times. Don't mind him. Riddick or Murray. I don't like either too much, but it'd be Riddick for me. Manning or McCown. For me, it'd be McCown. Tyrod or Brady. If you're playing the Sunday games, I wouldn't mind Brady. Do I like Eli, Sterling, and Ingram? Yeah, I just talked about that. I don't mind it for maybe like the Millie Maker or something like that. It'll be Des Bryant, I think someone said. Yeah, Ebron, I had him in my video. For the price, 3,100, I like Ebron. I couldn't get up to him in cash. I would have played him over Selleck for 600 more, but I couldn't get up to him. Freeman, I love, have him in my video. No, I wouldn't have the Eli Manning. I wouldn't have 3 Giants in cash personally. It's more of a GPP style stack. Running a single entry with no Bell or Brown. Is that a good call? I'm a Steelers fan, so I'm going to say no, it's not a good call. I think one of them is going to have a monster game, but if you do fade them and maybe they both put up like 17, 18 points or something like that right in the middle, they kind of split the points there on offense, then maybe it is a good call and you can find some other expensive guys that go off. So we'll see. I would probably, in a single entry, if it's a GPP type tournament, I'd probably have one of them. But again, if you want to place first, maybe a good idea would be to fade them because they're both going to be probably like 30% owned. Yeah, people are going crazy about Selleck. Just because he's cheap, 2,500, it allows you to spend up elsewhere. But I don't love him. I think I'd rather spend another $1,000, $2,000 on DraftKings for another tight end. But with that said, I think he's worth throwing in some lineups just for the salary relief. Godwin over Humphreys. I'm not really playing either of those two guys. I'd rather have Jackson or Brait. Upset prediction. Let's see if I can. Who do I think could? I think the Chargers could win against the Jaguars. Who else do I have? I'm trying to think who I have for my super contest picks. Can I tell you a sample squad? No, you can watch my video. I do have some picks, and then you can fill in your other guys. Someone said Selleck will have a horrible day. Yeah, I think he could have maybe 2 catches for 10 yards. I wouldn't be surprised. But that's kind of the risk you take when you put a $2,500 tight end in your lineup. Melvin Gordon. Yeah, I think Melvin Gordon is in a pretty good spot. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot. He's a workhorse, and he's going to be somewhat low owned. I wanted him in about 20% of my lineups. I think I got him in like 5% of my lineups just because it was tough with all the other running backs. But I wouldn't be surprised if Melvin Gordon put up 20 plus DraftKings points. Fournette or McCoy, kind of talked about this. I like them both as running backs. I just don't like their prices this week on DraftKings compared to what you can get down in the 6K range. Super sleepers, someone like Duke Johnson. I don't know. I think he could have a big game. Marquise Lee, who I don't think is a super sleeper after last week's game, but like him quite a bit. Jordan Matthews maybe. Not sure if he's being talked about too much. I usually don't listen. Right now I do only do some research looking at other people's articles on Sundays, so I haven't really heard too much who everyone else is talking about. I kind of mostly look at the Fantasy Labs ownership projections for GPPs. Dalton here, not a big fan, but yeah, not really a big fan, I guess. But as always, I got to say it, if you throw him in a GPP, he'll probably be low owned, so he could be a good milli maker play. Don't want to talk you out of him. Big Ben or Eli Manning. For me, it's Big Ben. Someone said Inman. I wouldn't touch any Bears receiver this week personally. It's expected to be a low scoring game. Maybe one of them does go off, but it's going to be tough to pick who that is. Would it be good to go with the Jags D? Yeah, you pretty much can't go wrong picking the Jags D almost any week. So I'm not against that at all. I don't think I might have them in 1 or 2 lineups. Don't have too much of them because they're priced, but I'm not against playing them. Someone said Aaron Jones. I do like him going forward maybe, but not a great matchup today, and he's kind of going to be splitting. I think he's going to be splitting snaps and carries, so don't like it in this matchup too much. Better tight end playing cash, Rudolph or Jack Doyle. I wouldn't personally be spending up on Jack Doyle in cash. He's getting very pricey, so I'd have to say Rudolph there. Yeah, no problem, Keith. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. We got about 4 minutes here until I got to go tweak my lineups. Who's my number 1 quarterback pick? So this week it's going to be Drew Brees. I like Brees. I like Stafford. I like Big Ben. And then I'm throwing in some random lower-owned quarterbacks that I kind of like for the milli maker. Just trying to find some lower-owned guys because I feel like there's going to be about 4 quarterbacks that are maybe 10% or higher. So I'm trying to find some guys that are around the 1 to 2% mark. Someone said Antonio Brown or Bell. Talked about this earlier. For me, it's Brown, but I like them both. Jordan Matthews or Decker. For me, it's Matthews. A lot of receivers, a lot of mouths to feed there in Tennessee. Do the Panthers win on Monday? Yeah, I could see that. I probably wouldn't take them on the spread. Probably betting against them, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, talked about him earlier. A lot of people are talking about him. A lot of people are going to be on him. He's cheap. Personally, I don't have him, but I could see that being a good play for the price. Fuller or Nelson PPR. If we're talking about DraftKings, probably Fuller for the price. Case Keenum or Mariota PPR. I'd go Keenum personally, but don't really like either. Gronk or Brait. If we're talking about straight up Gronk, I don't know what Gronk's price is because I'm not playing the Thursday to Monday contest. Is this the hardest week for DFS? Yeah, I'm not loving it too much this week. There's a ton of running backs that I think are good prices and in play, so it makes it tough to kind of narrow down your running backs. Wide receivers, again, there's not too much value in the low 4 range, high 3K range, so I think it's tough. And then tight ends kind of sucks this week. Defense, I don't mind, but most of the defenses that I like are expensive, so it makes for a tough week. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, yeah, I think you can't go wrong with that. Today, personally, I don't have any Matt Ryan. I'm a little worried. But I've got some Julio. I really like Julio this week. Couldn't fit him in as many lineups as I wanted to because I'm playing a lot of Antonio Brown. But I don't mind that stack at all. Someone said Andy Dalton again. Personally, I wouldn't touch him myself. But again, GPP, pretty much any quarterback could be in play. He's going to be 1% or less probably. OJ Howard. That's a good pivot play, but I don't know if I would take that personally. Flex player. Flex player can be anyone we talked about at wide receiver or running back. Top 3 tight ends. Vernon Davis, just off the top of my head, Vernon Davis. Probably Brait would be in there. And then Ebron was my video pick. So I think those are the top 3 guys. If you can get up to Evan Engram, I like him too. However, thought about doing a podcast. I've thought about it, just didn't really want to put in the time. Really busy right now. I like doing these live videos a little better when I have time. Yeah, Gordon is a good play as well. Someone said, yeah, I think so. I wanted him in about 20% of my lineups, but didn't get him in there. I think I have him in about 5% of my lineups. So it kind of worries me. I think Gordon could have a big game. Just so many running backs to choose from this week. Is Jones Jr. against a week D also a good play? Yeah, I think there's a lot of Lions in play in my opinion. Tate, Jones Jr., and Eric Ebron, I think, could make for a good stack with Stafford. Hyde and McKinnon. So personally, I'm not on McKinnon, and I do like Hyde. Don't think I got him in many lineups. Again, just so many running backs to choose from. Yeah, I really like Jordan Howard. I think he's in a great spot. Not expected to be a lot of points in that game, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ran the ball 25 plus times. I think they're just going to be pounding the rock. And I like the Bears D too, so I like them to get some stops and then probably control the clock there. So Hyde or Howard, for me it's Howard. Yeah, Hyde's up and down, but I think he will get a lot of targets today. That's why I'm kind of worried that I'm not on him enough. I think Hyde could see another 6+ target game with all the injuries they're dealing with there. Bell or Fournette. For me, it's Bell, if you can fit him in there. Big Ben or Stafford. That's a tough one. I think I have Big Ben more. Originally, I liked Stafford more, but then I saw the Steelers implied team total going up, and I'm a Steelers fan, and it was really hard not to throw Big Ben in a lot of lineups. So I threw Ben and Brown in a lot of lineups this week. I still think I have Breeze in the most lineups, though. Yeah, Howard against a weak Green Bay defense is an awesome play. Someone said, kind of agree with that. I don't think Green Bay's defense is too weak, but they're not great, and their offense isn't good right now without Rodgers. So the Bears should have the ball quite a bit. Yeah, no problem, Evan. Thanks for tuning in. I got to log off, guys. I got to tweak some lineups, make sure I'm not playing anyone who's injured. I got to go over everything. So good luck this week, guys. Hopefully you guys make some money, and talk to you guys on Twitter throughout the slate. Later, guys. Thanks for tuning in.